Good morning. It's time for Alex.
Hi, everyone. I'm getting a haircut on Friday.
I love that.
My man couldn't fit me in any sooner than
I
that.
love that your embarrassment is so high. That had to be the very first thing that you said.
I've gotten a succession of very bad haircuts.
I don't think that it's bad.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's just overgrown.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Because last time I got a haircut, I didn't get it from my man. I got it from my man's boy. And he was like, how much you want off the top? And I said, a good bit. He said, all right, a good bit. And then he cut like a centimeter, like a millimeter off. Oh. So it's like twice as long as it should be. It's twice as long as like it was already at way too long. I need a haircut, and then it got no shorter. It
does need cut, but like it's okay.
Well, thank you.
In terms of it having been worse.
Yeah.
Anyway, morning everybody. I want to start by saying Alex is here, but you probably figured it out on your own. And then the next thing I want to say is that we have this now. Look at this thing. I wish it was last week. I This took longer to arrive than it was supposed to be perfectly honest. We have
What's wrong with your autofocus?
We don't use autofocus.
Your black magic.
We don't use that. You can't just do that. What do you think this is? A Sony?
5 years? 5 years of what?
It's true.
Breakfast stream.
Chaz has got the link. This will be available for like a month or so. So if you're interested in celebrating 5 years of streaming and breakfast stream, you can pick this up for like the next month.
It has little fives in the background.
It does have fives. There are low fives. It's a cute little celebration of streams.
5 years.
It's as much as you're allowed to say.
My brain hurts a lot. I can't do a good David Bowie. No one can.
It's great if you've been watching the stream, especially if you've been watching it for 5 years, or if you're hitting 60 months. But if you're hitting 60 months, you have been watching for 5 years, so I guess that's the same person. Anyway.
Sorry, you said 60 months.
You're very trained. Yeah, I understand. So Alex is joining me this morning. Mao had a medical procedure. And she will be out of stream for a little bit. And I've got a vlog coming out tomorrow that explains it. She is okay. It doesn't have anything to do with endo, and she's okay. And the vlog will be out tomorrow. And we'll talk about it probably a little bit more on Thursday or something.
Yeah, maybe just to put people's minds at ease and to say no more than this, it's something that she wanted to happen and that she's happy happened.
Yeah, those are good things to add, yes. Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we're all very proud of her.
She did good. It also means that there isn't Pikmin today, but I will be streaming Starfield in its place. So, same time slot at 1 p.m. Eastern. It'll just be me. I'll be doing Starfield. Which is great for me, because I've wanted to play more Starfield. Alright, let's do some alerts. We had 38 months from Kayla Crisp, 88. 11 from Barbarian Rex, 32 from The Reload, 57 from I Spy Moose, 21 from Luna Frey Belmont, 39 from Risky Click 1996, 49 from Xena Fantasies. We got 350 bits from Radio Dread says, just clowning around, as one does. That's what you do in the mornings. Mm-hmm. Just a little bit.
Clown. How do you clown?
How do I clown?
Yeah.
I clown with a... How do you clown?
Usually a little bit of a scoobity-boop-bop-bop. Sorry, I'm a little tired. I gotta bring up the breakfast stream energy and really get into it.
That's a scat clown. That's what that... when you started that, I was like... Cool. New clown alerts dropping. 18 months from Potato Chips. What? 40 months from Barry Crepes, 39 from Poor Wolf, 30 from Ketswiki Randy, 36 from Justin the Light. Congrats on the 3. 32 months from the Viking Hippie, 10 from Candy Lou B, 54 from Penguin Frog, 49 from Dude 4269, 10 from Aaron the Baron. We get 300 bits from Blue Haired Cyborg. It says, wow, I get to catch breakfast stream from the start today after finishing the journey on Saturday. Whew.
Wow.
Congrats. Now you know everything. That's very hard to do now. We famously just passed 5,000 vlog days, so there's like a lot of it.
What was your favorite vlog day? Blue-haired Cyborg.
I would love to just know that from like a general perspective, what people enjoy on the journey.
Is there one that you're most proud of?
I think if you asked me this at different times, I would answer different like questions.
Sure.
There is a shot that has always stood out to me that I managed to capture, that lives rent free in my head, and so we have a visitor, and it's during the hurricane where me and Mao and my parents left the area and went to stay with Emil. We went to the Georgia Aquarium. And that entire vlog is very like cinematic and cool, but there's like one shot in particular where my parents are like walking through and they're like looking up at like there's like the fish above them and stuff, and the lighting. It's just really beautiful. And that, for whatever reason, is what I'm gonna say like right now.
Surprise.
Oh no!
Oh my God! Ah!
I'm gonna go back to the family blanket.
It was a ghost.
It was a ghost.
It was a
I'm
ghost.
becoming a blanket.
It was a spooky ghost.
Good night.
It was a Haley mash. It was a bash. It was a blanket crash. The monster mash. Oh no, sorry, that's copyrighted.
We can't even speak the words. It doesn't.
It's an unspecified
Yeah, it's
mash or soiree. Not necessarily a mash. Doesn't have to be a mash.
It was a soiree.
It was a spooky soiree.
That works. It's got the alliteration. Why don't we do that? We got 16 months from the Let's Gamer, 10 from Brina BX, 100 bits from Fanboy the Viper, 300 from Genesis. It says, Alex, I don't know why you think your hair looks bad. It looks great.
Oh, thank you. It's a little overgrown, that's all.
Yeah,
But I
it's
appreciate it.
it looks pretty good. There's been times in the past where your hair has looked worse. So
Yeah.
I just think about those times, and then this looks great.
Usually it's immediately after a haircut. And then
That means that you've had a bad haircut.
until I get another haircut. Yeah.
Yeah. You're slowly getting like better and better barbers.
I've had a lot of bad haircuts in my life. And
More than anyone else I've known.
When I got the really bad haircut, the good barber, my man,
My man.
was telling me like he's saying like your hair is actually like difficult. Like it's very fine, and it kind of has a mind of its own.
Oh, so it's not that everyone that has ever cut your hair has like been bad at it. It's that your hair is.
They have been bad at it. But
Yeah,
it's
they
like
have.
a challenge. It's a challenge. I have always had like a huge cowlick back here, and then other like if it gets too long, it goes in different directions.
How have you ever felt about hats?
Not much of a hat man.
Okay. Well, I didn't know if that was like completely off the table, or if you're like, no, if I had the right hat, I could be a hat person.
Hats are too warm.
Okay.
They're uncomfortable to wear because they're warm on your head. Try going outside in the 90-degree weather with all the humidity with a hat on.
I think it probably depends on the hat, but yeah.
Well, I've only ever worn like beanies.
Oh my God! Well, yeah.
Because I've never bought any other kind of hat.
Yeah, that would... You could wear a trucker hat. Trucker hats are lightweight material.
Oh, with like the mesh?
The back is
Yeah.
mesh.
Mm-hmm.
You exude some like trucker energy, I think.
Sometimes.
Yeah, it's a positive thing.
Yeah.
Truckers are fine people.
Oh, they are. Absolutely. They're the backbone of America.
I mean, yeah, quite literally. We got 6 months from Zero Evil, 34 from Paranite. We got 300 bits of chai says, don't look now, but I think there's a clown lurking in the shadows of your couch. Never mind. It was just a wild Haley.
Oh yeah, do you have the
That happens sometimes.
Do you have the road hat still that I wore in that college vlog?
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Oh wow, okay.
I don't get rid of clothing.
Hats.
Yeah. I have a lot of hats. It's actually surprising the amount of hats I own.
I haven't seen you wear a hat in 15 years.
Yeah. I actually own a lot of hats, and I do not wear hats. I wear the cowboy hat more often than anything else. Skits got gifted a sub to My Name's Glitch. 300 from Squid says, sure, the Haley revealed herself, but Eminem is still hidden somewhere, waiting to pop out. With spaghetti. Should I go get you some? Haley, I thought you were gonna sleep. Wasn't that the whole point? You were going to take a nap? Or are you just really invested in digging through my closet and trying to find hats? Do whatever your heart desires. We got 28 months from Kenda Queen. Aldo gifted a sub to Secret Society Blanket. 42 months from a Person Dude 1. We got 300 from Liberty KJ. Says, as a ska enjoyer, I'm just wondering, do you know that Five Iron Frenzy is back together and has been for a while? Yes.
I didn't know that.
It was a few years ago. But yeah, they got back together and then released new albums. I have heard none of the new stuff.
The last one I remember was Cheeses of Nazareth.
It's a great album.
I don't think I ever heard it.
Oh.
I remember it existing.
It does
and
exist.
I remember it being like, oh, this is Five Iron Frenzy's last album.
It wasn't.
Swindling a sock isn't complete without Tiny Eddie's licorice-flavored sticky double-dip lime and pumpkin puffs.
It's a lot of words. That's Best Belief says, Tiny Eddie, it's my birthday once more, and I'd like to have a very special snack today, please. Happy birthday. Hope it's a good one, and I hope it's full of licorice-flavored, sticky, double-dipped lime and pumpkin puffs. You have to start at the end and work backwards to figure out what on earth this is. So it's lime and pumpkin puffs, so like Cheetos, but they're real sticky and they're licorice flavored. What's the point of having lime and pumpkin if it's licorice flavored?
It doesn't sound that bad.
It doesn't sound that bad.
If you imagine like a licorice tahine that you sprinkle on pumpkin flavored crispy puffs.
Yeah.
But then also it's very sticky and they're dipped in something. We're not quite sure what.
Everybody eat pork.
They're just sticky. And you can tell they've been dipped in something. Speaking of pumpkin, we actually, we were sitting at the dinner table last night, and the neighbors brought over more food. And they don't ever say like the name of the dish or anything, so I don't know what they're called, but like, it was like a big slice of roast pumpkin next to a huge bed of rice. No, stay over there. Did you take a cat though?
I did take a cast.
I was about to be like, oh boy. Big bed of rice, beef, I think? Some sort of meat.
Beef or lamb or something.
Peas, carrots. Fine. And I feel like I'm missing an ingredient in there.
There were nuts.
Yeah,
Or
cashews.
Roasted cashews.
Yeah.
Added
It was-
a really nice crunch.
It was very good.
And they gave us like a salad.
Yeah, there was a lemon salad. So
Very citrusy.
it was very, very good. I enjoyed that a lot. We had 56 months from Vegetable Sorbet. 300 Bits from Cheesehammer says, I see that the role of Mao has been recast. Not sure how I feel about the new actor, but I guess we'll see. How does one audition for the next time this happens? I think I would be perfect in the role of Brandon.
We should really do an April Fool's vlog where we switch roles.
Have you ever seen the episode of Seinfeld where Elaine starts hanging out with a different group of people? It's like she starts hanging out with a different group of three guys, and then at some point, George and Jerry and Kramer are walking, and they meet up with Elaine and her friends, and it's just bizarro versions of them, and there's this very fun shot of all of them looking at each other. That would be perfect. You have to get Thomas on that to figure out who can play
We'll
bizarro
have to
versions of us.
Get our casting director to scour the country for the perfect
Perfect
actors.
Alex. I love that.
got no grabbing sticks.
What?
Do you need a tall? That don't stand.
That's
on that.
a-
Don't no.
Oh, do I have hats up high?
Do you need me to grab something? I can go. grab.
No.
not-
It's a fun quest for me.
Let's not injure.
You won't injure.
We're already taking care of one person in this house. We really don't want to have to take care of two people in this house. It's fine. So anyway,
Well, I'm glad to be here.
yeah.
I do have a work meeting in an hour, but I just told them no. Did you know that you can do that sometimes? You can just say no.
You can say no in a lot of areas in your life. Work is actually one where it's sometimes a little harder to say no.
It's definitely harder for a lot of reasons. Yeah.
It depends, it depends on your job.
If you work a shift,
Yeah.
if you do an hourly job and you're scheduled and you're just like, nah, I'm not coming in today, there might be repercussions.
Chaz says, I say no in my work all the time.
Oh my god, the Just Say No is a really good game. Have you played Just Say No?
Mm-hmm. I did the first 20 of it. It's very fun.
The German one?
You just, for those that have never played the game, it's a game where you work in an office environment, and you have a button where you just scream no. And you just go up to people and you scream no at them. So they ask you to do things, and you're like, no.
Yeah, it has a great message of don't let your employer trample you.
Yeah.
Oh. I just saw a floating hat walk by. Yeah, and it gets pretty crazy and fun.
Yeah,
If you play more than the first 20 minutes of it.
Yeah, I only played like 20 or 30 minutes, but it was enjoyable. You get you can charge up the no.
Yeah.
And then you can scream at people when they go for it's like Fus for Da or something. It's very fun. We have 300 Bits from Shy. It says, if you want to know how this cult and its extended universe head ruined me, I got some pears from Costco the other day, and I can't look at them without hearing everybody eats pears in my head every single time. I'm
Does
sorry.
everybody eat pears?
Everybody.
Oh. Everybody pears.
Now we have a copyright strike. We got 39 months from Statman7. 300 from Chiron says, a duck in a truck is not in the trunk, and he's drinking whiskey, getting tipsy, but he's not drunk. He is named Buck. He likes to hit a puck. He plays a lot of hockey, but he does not suck.
Was that you trying to rhyme a bunch of words without saying any expletives?
Yeah.
Is that where that came from?
Yeah, there was a night where we did a lot of songs, and it took a long time to get to that. They were a little wonky before we hit that, but eventually we got there. Brandon says, we're going to make the Kids Bop version of System of a Down song. Sign me up.
Oh, no. Oh, no. I don't want to be Ninten.
That's Ness.
What are you talking about? They're the same hat.
Well, then choose. Who do you want to be?
Why did you go into a Ninten voice for that?
Whoa. Who is this cool guy? The best part of this is I was actually, before you did that, I was like, I think it would be really fun. I think it would be really fun for because I don't think we've ever had just Alex on. So I think it'd be very fun for folks to ask Alex questions that they have interest in learning about, like game design and coding and things like that, because Alex has been involved in a very long and interesting career.
Just have a hat, buddy.
We have so many hats. We really have a lot of hats. Do you want to give like a brief overview of like some of the games that you've worked on and some of the other like?
Yeah.
Because people here actually really like video games.
What's your favorite video game?
I don't know that you've worked on it since you were like 5 years old.
Well, my favorite video game is Black Eyed Peas Experience. It has a very special place in my heart.
And is it your favorite video game because you worked on it?
It was the first commercial video game that I worked on.
Yeah.
It was developed by INIS, INIS, which stands for Infinite Noise of the Inner Soul. They're a Japanese developer. Well, were. Rest in peace. They're no longer around. But they made a Osu Takate Oendan, also known as Elite Beat Agents.
Yeah. Japanese version of Elite Beat Agents.
And then they got like bought by Ubisoft, or Ubisoft like invested in them, and yes, thank you, Tatake Oendan. They worked with Ubisoft. Ubisoft did the Michael Jackson experience.
Yeah.
On like Wii and Kinect, which was very popular. And then Ubisoft was like, let's keep doing more of these. What other bands can we license? And so they developed with INIS the Black Eyed Peas experience. But they contracted out some of the animation work, like for all the cutscenes, to this company in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
This company in San Diego ended up hiring me because they had no idea how to do this work. And I was fresh out of college.
Wait, they took on a job, but they were like, they didn't know.
Well, they traditionally did like pre-rendered cinematics for games.
Yeah.
So they did a lot of work for Sega. So they would do like trailers and pre-rendered intros and stuff.
Okay.
But then they started getting into real-time, like doing real-time cutscenes for games, like things that play in engine, which is kind of a different skill set because you have to like make it run in the game engine.
Yeah, you're limited by resources or whatever.
Yeah, and it's just, with a pre-rendered cutscene, you just, it's more of a traditional like film pipeline. You just render everything out and composite it and make it look pretty, and you don't have to worry about, any like technical, as much technical stuff.
Yeah.
So with they did the remember we played the demo for Iron Man on Xbox 360 where you like fly around?
Yes.
In college. So they did like a trailer for that. They did a bunch of, which was a Sega game. They did a bunch of stuff with Sega and a few other Japanese developers, and then the Tohoku earthquake, the one that caused the Fukushima nuclear disaster, hit Japan. And in addition to being a tragic loss of 20,000 lives, was also like a huge hit to the Japanese economy.
Yeah. And
a lot of their work dried up. So they were like in desperate straits and doing this project. This was like their only project that was still viable. The Black Eyed Peas experience.
That's like a wild. Because when you see Black Eyed Peas experience on the shelf, you're just like, Black Eyed Peas. So like to hear this part of the story is just like a wild connection.
So they because of it was a very they were doing turnkey work, like you get a contract, you do the project, you get paid.
Yeah.
It's a very like short turnaround, and very thin margins. And like because their business took a hit, they were like laying people off and kind of in a bad spot. So they needed new employees to be able to work on this project. They happened to be friends with the guy who was the chair of the department at SCAD when I was there. Yeah, the chair of the like game dev department.
Appropriate hat.
And so they asked him if he could recommend anybody, and I had just graduated, and so he kind of connected us. And I had like a short phone interview where they were like, "Do you know Unreal?" And I was like, "Yeah."
Was that the entire interview?
And they were like, "We'll buy you a plane ticket." So I just flew out on Southwest, the most luxurious airline from Birmingham to San Diego, and worked for 3 months for free, which is not legal. Don't do that. If someone wants you to work for them, especially if it's like an internship, but you're not in college anymore, and it's not like anyone mentoring you and showing you stuff, they're just like, we need this job done. You shouldn't do that unpaid. We know these things now, but...
Brandon and Haley both had different points that were interesting. Brandon pointed out that you had the opportunity, because you were a good student, which you were. What did you graduate? Something good.
I mean, I graduated. I had a good GPA. I graduated magna cum laude. But
that's it. That word.
But also, I spent my entire college career working really, really way too much on projects.
Yeah.
I mean, for college, I wouldn't say it was too much, but it certainly set me up for a lifetime of
Dan,
trying to not work too much.
Me, Dan, and Taylor played GTA 4 online, and Alex just worked, and we were like,
I had fun too.
Anyway, so that was the one thing, and then Haley had mentioned that that was why you weren't at our wedding, because I think that may be a confusing thing. Is like, why on earth was Alex not at your wedding? A huge omission, and that's because Alex had just gotten this position.
I had just started the job, job. I had just started, and it was a very and I, was young and stranded in San Diego and couldn't afford to fly, and they did give me an apartment.
Yeah. Well, look at that. There you go.
And then after I worked for 3 months for free, and they were like, we really want to hire you, they took me and another coworker who was also from SCAD, because they hired a bunch of people from SCAD to work unpaid. They took us out to lunch and bought us margaritas, and were like, we want you to work, and we want you to keep working for us. We'll give you a salary, and we really want to thank you for all the work you've done over the past 3 months. And they gave us a check for $500.
Oh my God, man!
So
I've never even heard this story.
I got a margarita and $500 for 3 months of work.
Oh, thank God we have our VOD title. Wow.
But the apartment was, it was not a good apartment, but it was in a wonderful location.
Yeah.
Don't let yourself be exploited just because you think it's the only way to seize opportunities. But do recognize opportunities when they're presented to you, and take advantage of them where you can.
SCAD's sounding better and better to people. They're like, oh wow, look, I can get unpaid jobs through SCAD.
The apartment was a 10-minute walk from the office, and it was right on the corner of Balboa Park in San Diego, which is like a beautiful giant park.
Yeah.
And it was I lived in Hillcrest in San Diego, which is the gay neighborhood. Mm-hmm. So amazing brunch. Not a lot of kids running around, just people having a good time.
Yeah.
Chill adults who know what they're about.
Yeah.
And good hole-in-the-wall restaurants and brunch places and bars. So for a young 20-something, just staking it out in the world and leaving the South.
Yeah,
it was fun. It was worth it.
And that was all just for Black Eyed Peas experience.
That was to work on Black Eyed Peas experience.
Eventually, you did work on other video games, and they did pay you.
I did, yeah, and
which is good.
Yeah, I it's been so long since I worked on these older projects.
Yeah.
What are they gonna do? Sue me?
You don't remember what you signed.
And I worked for Activision. I worked on Call of Duty, and for a while I it's not something I would talk about because I did sign an NDA.
Yeah.
But I know for a fact I'm never gonna work for Activision anymore. I'm not gonna go back to Activision, so I'll talk to you about Activision.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah, we did Black Eyed Peas Experience. We did The Amazing Spider-Man. We did the cutscenes for The Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah, your name's in the.
That was
your name. Your name wasn't in the credits for Black Eyed Peas.
Yeah, I think Spider-Man was the first one I was credited on, like individually. And they, because in Black Eyed Peas we just got a studio credit.
Yeah.
And then in Spider-Man, all of our names were listed in the credits, and they spelled my boss's name wrong. We all loved that. Instead of Robert, they put Robert-T. Robert with a Y on the end. It was great.
I'm feeling a little Roberty.
Yeah, the Spider-Man game was made by Beanox, which is an Activision studio. They're in Montreal, I think. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if Beanox is still around, but they did it was the Spider-Man game for the Andrew Garfield reboot of Spider-Man, because they've done like 8 different Spider-Man reboots. And Andrew Garfield didn't agree to have his likeness in the game.
Oh.
I guess there was some sort of like dispute where he wanted more money for that,
yeah,
and they weren't having it.
Yeah.
So we did the cutscenes for that game, and any cutscene that Spider-Man was in, like if he didn't have the mask on, had to be first person, because you couldn't show Andrew Garfield's face. Because I think all the other characters were like the actors from the movie, so they couldn't just put like generic dude in for
That's hilarious.
Peter Parker.
Should have subbed him out for James Gore. Yeah, that's very funny. That's because I'm sure there's someone that's played that game and thought this is weird, and that explains that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's not the first time that's happened. Where it's like whenever they would make James Bond games, and it would be like in the era of a particular actor, like Pierce Brosnan, but like Pierce Brosnan wouldn't be in the game. It's like a licensing thing. They have to pay a bunch of money.
Yeah.
Neat.
Yeah.
We had 33 months from Shiny Hunter John. Anise gifted a sub to Satsy. And 300 from Shy says, the stories we get once the NDA lifts, truly a wild ride. Yeah, this is one of the reasons I wanted Alex to be on by himself, because I was like, there's so many like interesting stories and pieces of information, and then also because people have an interest in game design and game development, you have a lot of experience doing all of that, so I figured they would find it fascinating.
Yeah.
So after Spider-Man, I know at some point you started working on theme park rides. When's the timeline for that?
So, let's see. There's Black Eyed Peas, there was Spider-Man. Yeah. There were a few other small projects. There was another big project that wasn't a game. It was called iYoga. It was an iPad app.
Oh.
Made by this company that had like they did like medical apps.
Okay.
So like they did iPad apps and things for med students.
Yeah.
Where they would have like very detailed scans and diagrams that you could like examine the human body and anatomy and stuff.
Yeah.
And they decided to do this app to kind of branch out and make a yoga app that would teach you how to do yoga poses. Mm-hmm. And would show you like in the same sort of level of anatomical detail, where you see like you could like turn on an X-ray view and see like the musculature as the yoga pose is happening, and see like what muscles are being in tension and all of that.
Yeah.
So the studio I worked for, we did animation for games and other creative projects, and we had a motion capture stage. So like for Black Eyed Peas, I wasn't involved in the mocap process for that, but like they hired a couple of dancers.
They did not hire the Black Eyed Peas.
They didn't hire the Black Eyed Peas, no.
I feel lied to.
But apparently the like, I still remember they talked about like the dancers being really, really good. Like the woman they hired was better than Fergie at doing Fergie's dances.
Okay.
And just very like acrobatic and athletic. Because they put them in motion capture suits.
Yeah.
Which, side note, there's a difference between passive optical and active optical mocap. you're used to thinking of like the little white dots on the suit, and then the cameras shoot light that reflects off the dots.
Yeah.
There's also a system where instead of having reflective dots, you have like actual LEDs on your body, and the cameras are just sensing that, and the LEDs are like blinking at a very particular frequency that identifies exactly which marker it is, so that you have less issues with like cleaning up the data.
Okay.
But the problem is then you have LEDs all over your body with wires coming out of them that if you like are dancing like Fergie can get screwed up, or if you like
Because you're covering.
have some sort of impact, it can like break the LED.
Yeah. Okay.
So active mocap. If any of you are ever buying a motion capture system,
Yeah, I think a few people are in the market.
We've
yeah.
moved on from active optical.
Okay.
What you really want nowadays, I think, is an XSense system, which is like actually affordable for, like, if you were going to be a VTuber and you wanted to drop like 10 grand, you could buy like a suit that you put on that would actually give you like full body mocap, and it's all inertial, like gyroscopic.
For 10 grand?
Yeah, something like
That's
that.
incredible. Wow.
It's more
Okay.
for the gloves, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, mocap is neat too. It's kind of a niche thing that, like, I have experience in games, I have experience in software engineering, and then mocap is just this fun little like hole that not that many people get into.
Mocap like kind of seems to me similar to like how cameras have been, where like there's a ton of technology that has been extremely prohibitive based on cost.
Mm-hmm.
And in a very short amount of time, I'm looking back and I'm like, what happened? Like everything is like affordable now. And people are doing, you can do mocap with like your phone to some extent.
Yeah.
And it's pretty good. So to find out that you can get it, really, really good for 10 grand, it's like incredible considering how much it used to cost. Which
Yeah, like
is
everybody,
more.
everybody that's doing, like, I would assume that most VTubers and people doing this for like sort of independent entertainment,
Yeah.
such as yourself,
Yeah.
being an independent entertainer, aren't you don't have to splurge for that level of tech now, because you can have a camera or a couple of cameras or a depth sensor or something.
Yeah.
And then you have like the image processing and filtering and analysis software has gotten so good that you can just like point a camera at something and get like a pretty good full body solve.
Yeah.
Or VR controllers or whatever. Yeah, the like XSense inertial mocap suit at the 10 grand price point is like, it's neat because it's putting that technology in the hands of more people that are doing it for like work.
Yep.
Like the company I worked for, we had a mocap stage. It was like, I don't know how much, 50 to 100 grand for this whole setup, and it was very finicky, and you needed to hire people to operate it.
Yeah.
And you had to calibrate it. There was this whole process where you have to like make sure all the if the cameras move at all, if anything moves, if there's like a minor earthquake in San Diego, you have to reset everything and take this big wand and like walk around in this very particular pattern to calibrate all the cameras. And it was just a mess. And now it's just much simpler and it's cheaper, and like that company is no longer in business doing that particular thing anymore because it's just not a competitive advantage that like, oh, we dropped 100 grand on this thing.
Yeah.
Because other people can do it for less.
Yeah. I mean, the technological improvements that we've had just in like 10 years have been wild.
Yeah.
And for me, like it's been cameras, but it's fun to hear about other things that I'm at least like somewhat familiar with and how much cheaper they've gotten.
Yeah.
And I mean, at this point, yeah, a lot of people here have VTuber models and like to do streaming with that. So that is also very much in their wheelhouse too. So knowing that you can do it from just a phone is wild. Like the fact that we have the like LiDAR scanners on the phones where you can just like make a 3D model, that blows my mind. I'm still really impressed with that.
Yeah, we did some stuff with LiDAR at that job too.
Yeah.
And it was like, it's $10,000 to get a scan of the site.
Yep.
Yeah. So they got fake Fergie,
Yeah.
who was better than Fergie, and they put all the markers on her, and they had her do all the dance moves.
Yeah.
And then they take that animation, and they're animators whose mocap is still a very creative and labor-intensive process that involves animators.
Yeah.
Even if they're not like building the animation from scratch, they're still retargeting it to the character and cleaning it up and fixing things.
Yeah.
And applying like a lot of creative judgment and artistic interpretation to what the data that you're getting out before it gets into the final product.
Yeah, sure.
So that all gets cleaned up, and then it has to go in the game. And that was kind of where I came in, was making sure all this animation could get in the game. And then it was me and a team of a couple other guys who were getting it in the game and setting up all the cutscenes and making the people dance around the Black Eyed Peas and doing all the effects for when, Fergie does a little thing and she's like blowing a kiss and there's a heart with a particle effect, all of that stuff.
Was it fun to work on?
It was.
Was it fun mostly because it was like your first big thing out of college?
It was fun in a lot of ways. It was fun. It was fun to be like young and fresh-faced and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and out. Just in my life doing a new thing.
Yeah.
It was a fun project to work on because we just had a lot of. So for one, it was also just kind of the camaraderie of it, because it was me. It was a friend of mine that I went to SCAD with.
Yeah.
And then one guy who had worked at the studio before, and then another guy that they hired.
This is a pretty small team.
Yeah, and so we were all just kind of like in the office, hanging out, working on stuff. We had a lot of like leeway to do whatever we wanted. There would be like reviews and creative sort of decisions being made above our heads, but like nobody really knew what we were doing any more than we did. So we were just able to, have fun with it,
Which I'm sure was a pretty big change going from an environment like that with a small team to working at a place like Activision.
Yeah. Although that was a very different job too. Like that was way more just software engineering. Whereas earlier in my career, it was a very eclectic mix of art and animation and scripting and stuff.
Brandon has an interesting question asking how much structure went into the Black Eyed Peas project. Were you given a broad objective and told to go wild, or was it very broken down?
So the way it worked, I think, was like there were deliverables, because we were a contract studio doing this for Ubisoft. Yeah. And this, so there were certain deliverables, like we need these cutscenes. There were a bunch of cutscenes that. There were 3 or 4 different stages or venues in the game where you could do the dances with the Black Eyed Peas. Yeah. So for each of those, you needed like an intro animation to play at the beginning of the level, like when everybody's walking in and whatever. Yeah. And then an outro animation for when you did the dancing good, and then like little interludes for when things change during the level. Okay. So we needed those, and then there was a point where there were pre-rendered cutscenes when you unlock a new stage. Okay. So those were also part of it. So some stuff was real time, some stuff was pre-rendered. So it was like there were certain deliverables that we had to do. There was this creative process where our company, the creative director, would kind of come up with storyboards and animatics and submit these to the client, and the client would approve them. Yeah. And so from there, our job was basically like take all of this animation that we came up with and make this cutscene. Like they had an animatic that was done in like Maya. Yeah. So it was like, so there's like I had to figure out how to take the camera animation that they had in Maya and import that into the game.
But if you're working from an animatic, there's a fair bit of rigidity in what they expect.
Yeah. So it was basically taking an existing scene that was in Maya. Yeah. Because they work in Maya. That's where you do animation. You do animation.
Maya.
It doesn't have to
That's
be in
where
Maya.
you do animation. Yeah.
It doesn't have to be in Maya, but you don't animate directly in the game engine, or at least you didn't at that time. So it was in Maya, and we take it and we put it in and make it look the same as it does in Maya.
Yeah.
And then from there, it's like, okay, well, the camera actually kind of got weird and compressed because of what the game engine is doing. We have to figure out how to fix that, or we need particle effects here, or we need to put in like a crowd in the background that's dancing.
Yeah.
But we can't afford to render that many characters, so we need to like fake it where we render like you render some stuff off. You do some like a row of dudes off screen, and then you render that to a texture so that it's like a little GIF of guys dancing, and then you just put a bunch of those layers in.
Yeah.
Like an NFL blitz when you look in the stands or whatever.
Yeah, and it's like the same 4 people just doing this.
Yeah, it's all synchronized.
Yeah.
Yeah. So stuff like that, like the technical aspects of it, and then the creative execution of things like effects and the lighting and all of that.
I'm sorry to make you talk so much about your first thing, because you did other like things.
Well, I went back to Fergie. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, so yeah, we did Black Eyed Peas, we did Spider-Man, we did the yoga project.
Yeah.
Which, what I was getting at was we had this big mocap stage, so this was a way to use that.
Yeah.
They hired like a yoga person to do all these yoga poses. There were like 90 of them.
Yeah.
And then for every pose, we had to produce like a front and side view of like the full body with all the musculature, and then an X-ray view where you see what muscles are activating.
Yeah.
And they had to get the yoga expert in to like put in the data to like look at the footage and be like, okay, well here's where this muscle is activating. So I was responsible for like coming up with the tools, the way that all of that stuff would happen.
Yeah.
Like the yoga person doing the muscle stuff was all like After Effects.
Okay.
Because we didn't have time to develop like good tools for it. So it was just like they gave the person a very basic rundown of After Effects, and they loaded up all the footage, and they were like, here, you can scrub through, and then it was all done with like the markers that you can put on layers. So there was like red for when the muscle, it's tension, and whatever else when the muscle does like flex or unflex.
Yeah.
There was a red and a blue label that you could put on the layer on a range. So they just sat the person down and was like, this is After Effects. Here's how you scrub through. Press this key and this key to like set the range of where, and there was a layer for every single muscle, and go through and do that. So they did all that.
Yeah.
And then I had to figure out, okay, well, how do we get this data and like put it into the render so we can render it out with the right, colors happening at the right times.
Yeah.
And then take all of that and composite it together, because you render out, when you render a 3D scene, you render out different passes.
Yeah.
You don't just like render the full thing. There's this whole stage called compositing, right? Where you have, mats of different like portions of the image, like masks.
Yeah.
And different like channels and things, and then you put all that together. So a lot of the magic of like making the muscle stuff happen was done in compositing, which was done with Fusion. If you've used DaVinci Resolve,
Yep.
it used to be a standalone product called Ion Fusion, and then DaVinci bought them, I think.
Yeah.
So now it's incorporated into Resolve.
There is still a standalone version of Fusion.
Oh.
It does still exist,
Yeah.
but for what most people would use Fusion for, it's just built into Resolve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there, I had to write a lot of like Python scripts for Fusion to take all this footage and all this data and marry it together in a way that would render out the final shot.
Yeah.
And then there was just there were like 90-something yoga poses, all of which needed multiple renders and multiple comps and multiple things, and there was this huge like pipeline of everything that needed to happen along the way to finish a yoga pose.
Yeah.
And so I like wrote tools that kept track of all that stuff and where we were in the process with each one.
Was that where you started to really get into like working on tools specifically? Because your career kind of shifted into like working on tools.
Yeah, I mean, it started back with Black Eyed Peas because they were like, we need to import all these animations into the game engine.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of animations. And so me and my coworkers were doing this, and it's like, okay, well, you open up this tool, you open up Maya, and you load the animation, and you run this script, that opens this thing, and then you click here to set, like, name it, and type in the name and the frame ranges, and then you export it, and then you find the, like, where the file needs to go, and then you save it there with the right name.
Yeah.
And then you go to the engine, and you open the import box, and you find the file, and you pull it in, and then you make sure that, like, this field matches up with what you had in mind. And so doing that I'm the kind of person where doing that, like doing any repetitive work like that, just drives me insane. If there's a way to do it better,
Yeah.
like faster, you can automate this stuff.
Yeah.
Like there's scripting languages built into all these tools.
Yeah.
So it was just a matter of like, I don't want to do this manually. Let's figure out how to make it just work.
Yeah.
Like I just hit one button and it does it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't screw anything up. I don't have to worry about all these little details. So that's kind of where it started. And then, yeah, I started progressing more into that being more of a focus, less as opposed to like the art kind of side of it. But that's that kind of like joy or like response to the drudgery of like, oh God, I have to worry about all these things and do all these little things. That's kind of just the fun of software engineering in a nutshell to me. Like you have a problem and you solve it in a way where you just like all these stupid little details, you just kind of, okay, well, let's figure out procedurally what needs to happen with all of these things so that we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Like we just, you know, you click this button in this tool and it does all these steps.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as like, well, you run this function and you can be guaranteed that it's going to do the right thing.
Yeah. I guess it was always fascinating to me because like in college you worked on a lot of different things and like I recall like you were doing a lot of like level design stuff and like doing things that felt maybe more towards like the artistic side of like game design and game development. And then you ended up getting really into a very different side of it as your career progressed. And it's just a weird, I guess like when people think of SCAD, they probably don't think like, oh, well, SCAD makes a lot of tools engineers. You know what I mean? Like that just is a very interesting path.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been happiest when I'm able to do creative work.
Yeah.
Like because to me, writing software it can very much be creative and creatively fulfilling.
Yeah.
And it can be not that. So it's more fun when you sort of get that, when it scratches that itch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the other thing I wanted to find out was you have worked on theme park rides.
Yeah.
And I was just curious when, because I don't remember.
Yeah,
I know
okay.
you worked on like superhero ride.
Yeah. So there was Justice League.
Justice League.
Battle for Metropolis was the big one.
Was
Six
that in
Flags.
Texas?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just to back up, so I worked at this studio in San Diego.
Yeah.
We did Black Eyed Peas, we did Yoga, we did Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And then I was doing like a bunch of like Skunkworks development stuff, working on like virtual production tools.
Yeah.
The mocap stage, like previs for film production. A bunch of stuff. It didn't really take off for the company.
Yeah.
And it was a dark time when they like fired everyone except me. And I was just working. I was working alone in the office.
True.
And then they like lost a bunch of money and fired a bunch of people. And then there was like this back section of the office where the like executives were.
Yeah.
And this front part of the office where the whole team was. And then they just like, oh, we fired everybody. Everybody moved to the back office.
What did that feel
and we'll
like?
sublet this to somebody else. And then it was we had this tiny little room on the roof of the building that had a server rack, like it was an air-conditioned like server room on the roof, and it had a tiny little office like antechamber in front of it. And then I was working up there. Then we just lost the office entirely and moved to the mocap studio, which was like freezing cold in the winter. So I was like there with like fingerless gloves, typing and shivering with like space heaters around me, and all of my
I had to walk 20 miles uphill both ways to reach the server.
I had been hired with a bunch of friends from college and like made all these friends, and then all of them got fired and had to leave town.
So, yeah,
I was just like alone.
My question is,
And the whole time they were like, we're about to move the company to LA because we're working on these deals to like. And so I was like, well, I'm going to move to LA soon. I guess I'll just work and not really,
live,
meet anyone else or do anything socially.
Yeah.
And then it took like 2.5 years for them to move the company, which is when the theme park stuff happened. But you had a question.
Well, I was just the feeling of like they fired everyone but me. What does that feel like? Like, is that validating? Like, to be like, oh, I must be okay at this because they kept me.
Not really, no. I mean, it's the reason they kept me was because everyone else was like involved in doing the necessary creative work for these turnkey projects that they didn't have anymore. Like, they didn't have projects coming in, so they couldn't pay the people to do nothing. But they kept me because I was working on like the cool new technology that was going to save their company.
Okay.
It's because I was a programmer, and that was a more in-demand skill set for them at that time.
Okay.
Which is a feeling that, as a software engineer, you have sometimes of like, the work I'm doing is not inherently any more valuable, but it's valued by the market.
Sure.
In a way that other work isn't, and that's it just feels kind of gross.
We had 20 months from Svandera, 14 months from Game Bob Advance, and 3 months from Five Night. Thank you all. Okay, so the theme park.
The theme parks.
You made a roller coaster.
So, yeah, eventually they were like, we're going to move the company to LA. I moved back home to Birmingham.
Yeah.
When they were like, we're not even going to have like a company anymore in San Diego. And then I went to PAX, I met Haley. This was like a different chapter in my life that's not that relevant to my career.
2013, 10 years ago. 10 years ago this month.
Wow, yeah.
Happy anniversary.
So eventually, though, they did work out this deal with another company that was in LA that did theme park rides.
Okay.
So they sort of absorbed our studio and me with it, and like the technology I'd been working on as part of that.
Yeah.
And they brought us in, and we started working on theme park rides, which was also a similar thing where they had been doing pre-rendered theme park rides.
Yeah.
Where it's just like a movie of Superman, and you have like a little laser gun and you shoot.
Yeah.
And there's just like very basic data that's like, here's where a target is at this point.
Yeah.
And if you shoot it enough times, then it plays the good movie instead of the bad movie. It was like, a Laserdisc game.
Yeah.
But that you pay $50 to ride. So they were transitioning. This company was transitioning from that to doing like real-time 3D, actual video games where it's fully interactive and things are happening. So the first one was for a company called Dalian Wanda. They're like a Chinese conglomerate, huge company. And they were opening this theme park in Wuhan, China, which was a giant indoor structure with these different rides that were all rip-offs of American theme park attractions.
Sure.
And it was going to be like, the company has this very like charismatic CEO who's one of the wealthiest dudes in China, or was at the time.
Yeah.
Who was like, this is our answer. This is our answer to Disneyland. It's like the Chinese Disneyland. It's going to be great. We're going to show those imperialists what a real, true, authentic Chinese theme park is like by just making it a ripoff of like, there's like a ripoff Transformers ride and a ripoff Toy Story ride. So I was on, and it lasted like 6 months and went belly up. But I worked on a Monkey King themed ride, which was really cool to work on. It was a total ripoff of a game from, I think, Disney World, or called Toy Story Midway Mania, where you're on a little train and you have a gun that you shoot at little targets, just a shooting gallery. But it was based on Journey to the West.
Yeah.
So there's like the Monkey King and the monk and Pigsy, and you're shooting like peaches at them.
Yeah.
And it was fun. It was fun. And then we did Justice League, and it was 3D, like stereoscopic 3D with the glasses. So I had to like figure out how to make it render in 3D, while also being, doing a lot of the creative work for like putting all the scenes together and making everything interactive and making it work well.
Yeah.
And integrating it with the Ride platform, which was provided by another vendor. And then we did Justice League Battle for Metropolis.
Which is a big deal.
Yeah, that was with, it was a company called, I can't remember now.
I won't know.
It's in a press release somewhere. I forget the name of it. The Alice? Betty? There's a
Those are pretty
There's a company that does dark rides. So like traditional dark rides, they're big into animatronics. So the ride had like an animatronic Joker and like all these cool practical effects and stuff. So they did that part, and they contracted out the like game development work to us.
Yeah.
And so we did this project in Unreal. So it's a real-time game. It's also 3D. You have guns that you're holding, and you're shooting at stuff on screen.
You have guns.
Sally, thank you.
God, you really were in the right ballpark.
Yeah.
Alice, Betty, Sally. There it is, Sally.
Sally Corporation, yeah, Sally. And I think was it Lagatronics? I might be getting that confused with the Monkey King project, but there was like a Dutch vendor that did the ride platform that it was on.
Okay.
So yeah, that was initially at Six Flags, the original Six Flags in Dallas and Six Flags in St. Louis. And then it was after I worked there, but they expanded it to a bunch of different locations. So they did like Six Flags Oceaneering, yeah, that's what it was. Legatronics was the Monkey King one. They did it in Mexico. There's a Six Flags in Mexico.
Yeah.
They put it in Six Flags Magic Mountain, and then I think after that they went to a bunch of Six Flags locations. So if you're ever at Six Flags and you play Justice League Battle for Metropolis, I have no idea what state it's in now. If it's they may have done a lot to it since I worked on it, but I was there for the original.
And you worked on a bunch of other stuff after that too, because you worked on the Plants vs. Zombies something?
I wasn't really involved in that. I remember you guys played it, right?
Yeah.
No.
I thought you were involved with that.
I kind of left as that was getting underway. There was another...
Very anti-plant.
There was another dark ride for Ferrari World, a theme park called Ferrari World, which is in guess which country. I'll give you a hint. They love Ferraris. Ferrari World is in Dubai. It's a huge theme park in Dubai. Or no, Abu Dhabi. I think it was Abu Dhabi. Anyway, Ferrari World, it was a game where there was like a little cartoon mouse named Benno, and he had friends who helped him like build the Ferrari, and then you raced the Ferrari around. So I worked on that, but I wasn't there for it to finish because I left that company to work for Infinity Ward. And I worked on Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, and then I quit that job after a year and a half or so, and worked on VR stuff.
I like how you skipped over Infinity Ward completely. You're like, I worked for Infinity Ward for a year and a half. Anyway, so then I did this other thing, and I'm like...
I have had good experiences at every job I've ever had. But there have also been... I've also learned more about, like, the variety of different work environments that there are, and which ones are good, and which ones are not for me. And the whole thing of, like...
Who is the right fit for a job at Infinity Ward?
I mean, to speak positively of my experience, I
Sure.
learned a lot. It was the first job I had that was like a legit software engineering role, where it wasn't just like,
You were
hey,
important.
you know how to do the code. You figure it out.
I mean, you were important. Like from my understanding, you carried a lot of the weight, and your job was very, very important. Working on that game,
It was
like, you have a tendency to downplay yourself because you're a humble person, and that's great. But
it was
you
a
had
huge,
important work.
a huge team effort, because there's hundreds of people working on the game. There's like 100 people in the engineering department in the building.
Sure.
And I was on a team of like 8 or 9 people within that, the tools team. So, yeah, I got into that job, and I was like, oh no, I don't actually know what I'm doing. All these people are like really talented, smart engineers, and I'm like, I learned how to do Python and Motion Builder. So I learned a lot on
Yeah.
the job, and a lot of that I think was imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And so I learned like more
Absolutely.
about imposter syndrome and how like
What'd you learn in Infinity Ward? I learned about imposter syndrome.
even if you feel the imposter syndrome, like you did get the job, they did hire you. You are like doing stuff,
Yeah.
and learning on the job is part of the job.
Yeah.
Especially for a company like this, where it was like, we were working on like tools from the Quake 3 era. There's just like 15 years of different stuff.
Yeah.
In different states of like, oh, it's this new shiny thing that we made for this project, versus like, we inherited this from like 2 generations of the company ago, and no one who works here even knows how it works anymore. There was one guy who like completely rewrote it at one point, but then he left. But I learned a lot. I learned a lot from it.
Good.
And it was a harrowing experience that I would never do again.
Well, I think, honestly, having that knowledge is some of the most powerful knowledge you can have.
Yeah.
Being able to come out of a work environment and be like, I know enough about myself now to know that that's not what I want to do.
And that, a lot of the things I learned, it built for me a skill set that I can apply to other things. Like, I can use those same skills working on things that are more my speed and more my style, and more things that like motivate me and that I like doing.
Yeah. And you share a similar gene to me, and that is the workaholic gene. You have, over the years, I kind of done a similar thing to me, where like you've identified this as like, oh, this is bad, and kind of managed to slow down a bit. I'm just curious how you feel that has gone for you, like whenever you think about your past work and how much work that you had to do compared to now, and where you are in it, like it's in a different place in life, and how you feel about work as a concept. Because for me, I very much try to work less than I did, and it's very much like I'm dying. I need to not die because there's too much that's happening, and trying to escape burnout. And the reason I bring it up is because like I watched this happen to you, and it's like looking in a mirror. So
Yeah.
I've always really I felt like a deep like connection to you in that over the years. So
Yeah, I think there's a separate question of, do you like what you do? Which I think for you, the answer has always been yes.
yeah.
So you've always just been operating in that space. For me, like there's some subtle but very important distinctions when like I'm being burnt out, because burnout, right, is like a mismatch between what you're doing and what you want to do, or a mismatch between like your values and the values of the organization you work for.
Yeah, and those values can just be time.
So like true burnout for me is comes from like not enjoying the work or not being able to get any satisfaction out of the work.
yeah,
So that's sort of a separate axis for me than like working too much. Because I tend to work too much when I am really into what I'm doing.
yeah,
And so that's easier to do, to get to a point where you're like, you do have to be aware, you do have to catch yourself and be like, oh, I'm getting way too into this. I'm having too much fun. I'm like not sleeping. I should stop. That can be a challenge sometimes, but it's also, you know, once you gain that sort of presence of mind and can recognize that, it doesn't feel, you know, it feels like you're doing a good thing. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I have other things in my life that I can be doing right now that will bring me joy and like keep me healthy and happy. So that I think is something I have gotten better at over the years. But then there's also like being burnt out because the job you're doing sucks. And that's something that you can really only solve by quitting that job. Which is why, Charlie, if you're watching right now, I quit. But Charlie's probably not watching, so I'm going to have to figure out a more nuanced approach to solving this problem.
I don't think we could end the stream on any higher note. We had 22 months from Nukes Girl 18 and 7 months from Pastry Bear Plays. Jesus. It's fine. 3 from Shy. Says, I've never been more disappointed that we don't do breakfast raids than today because hashtag $500 Margarita is a great raid message. Don't worry. I'm gonna title the stream that.
Thank you.
Triple pat. That's it. There is a vlog that dropped. There will be 3. There was 3 yesterday. There will be 3 today. They're already scheduled. And then, of course, a vlog tomorrow that explains a little bit more in detail of what's going on with Mao. And then on breakfast stream on Thursday, we'll probably talk just a little bit more about that. Thanks for being here. Thank you for being here.
Of course.
This is great.
Happy to be here. Thank you all for listening to me ramble about job.
There is, and like there's stuff that we didn't even like get into, but
yeah.
we glossed over some stuff. But I think that this is a good beginner's course to what your career has looked like.
I still can't hear certain Black Eyed Peas songs. Every time you booted up the game on the title screen, it would play. Let's get it started. Let's get it started. I could like get the game started.
It really wasn't a whole lot of.
And then the first song that came up in the song selection, which was the one that we would always select when we were just testing.
Yeah.
Was, I got a feeling, ooh, that tonight's gonna be a good night. And we'd have to just sit there and listen to this whole song play through while we were testing the stage. It was great. It was great. So many, I've heard that song like thousands of times.
I hate that for you. I don't think I've heard any song thousands of times.
Fill up my cup! Mazel tov! Taboo in there. Ugh. All right.
Anyway, Starfield stream is at 1 p.m. Eastern. I'll be playing more Starfield today. I'm still planning to play Starfield on Thursday, like a normal time, but since we're not doing Pikmin today, I figured I'd replace it with Starfield. So double Starfield this week, as long as everything goes well. And tonight is disc only. I don't remember what time we do it. Is it 9? I don't know. It's like 9 p.m., I think. So I'll be there for that. And
you gotta acknowledge that 5-year resub.
60 months for Mike Capella.
Excellent, my man.
As a reminder, these are available for the next month at StephenShop.com, so you can grab these. commemorative mugs. And September is going on, so if you are someone that's planning to resub for the next few months anyway, you might as well do a multi-month resub in September because you save up to 30%. So it's just a good deal. Also, 33 months from Stephen Time. Appreciate it. And with that, I'm not going to do a dome today because the vlog's out, so you should go watch the vlog. But I will see you at 1 p.m. for Starfield. And Alex, thank you again for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate you. All right. Have a good one. See you at 1 for Starfield.